Everybody waves. Is that okay for the teacher?
Yes.
Oh, we got another guy coming. Oh, no, he's walking.
Whenever you're ready, Antonio.
I guess I'm ready now.
Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. By way of introduction, my name is Antonio Guastella, and I appreciate all you guys taking the time to help me fulfill the audience requirements for this assignment for Communications 105. In searching for the topics that I wanted to get, I found that the Bible has 66 verses regarding public speaking. So I was really surprised about that, and I asked the instructor to be all right, and of course it was. So I apologize, but I have a lot of scripture here, and I don't know it verbatim, so I'm going to have to look at it when I say it. It was pretty interesting to me, and hopefully you might like it anyway. So does that sound okay?
Yes.
Okay. As you can tell, I'm a lot older than most students, so I get a little nervous about it. Wonder if anybody's snickering and everything.
Never.
But anyway, I went through all the biblical verses, and I tried to figure out the best way I could pray, overcoming fears for doing this particular speech. And, you know, I asked the Lord's guidance and everything. I think we all do this, of course, as Christians. And I found so much it fit me to a T. Then I thought, prayer works for everything, even for public speaking. I mean, I started thinking about the Lord. I prayed to God to take the burden of crucifixion off him in the Garden of Gethsemane. How do we pronounce it? Gethsemane, or however it's pronounced. And if it worked for him to be able to go through such a thing, it should be able to do this. I read something in Romans 10:17 where it states, faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. And I sought the comfort and knowledge of the words of Psalm 19:14, which also states, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, my rock and redeemer. This is one of the 66 verses, believe it or not, that the Bible talks about public speaking, which I learned from this particular website, dailyverses.net. Pretty interesting. I have no clue. I never even gave it a thought. Like I said, I've been a Christian for many decades and never had a clue that the Bible said a darn thing about public speaking. I found a scripture of real significance almost immediately, and that was Romans 10:14, NIV. And it states, and how can they believe him if they have never heard about him? And how can they hear about him unless someone tells them? I felt this was a paramount biblical verse when affirmed and realizing that God does indeed give us more than the ability to speak to others and empower us, to be effective and forthright as we possibly can. I went on to something even more so, Proverbs 18:21, wherein it states, the tongue has the power of life or death, that a good man brings good things out of good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart, as we see in the present day world. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. I went over and over this verse in Proverbs, and it reminded me that no doubt the tongue does have the power of life or death, just as it was when Christ was condemned to be crucified. Indeed, there is an overabundance of scripture to enlighten and guide when speaking in public. Again, I refer to the scripture, I had no idea. For me personally, I can relate to Moses. He turned down the Almighty to speak. He said he could not speak well. And as we learn from biblical scripture, Moses was one of the most skilled leaders who went on to persuade Pharaoh to let the Hebrews go. Many times I went over this particular scripture in Exodus 4, 10, 12. This is also NIV. And it states, if I may, O Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. And the Lord said to Moses, who gave man his mouth, who makes him deaf or mute, who gives him sight or makes him blind. Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, and I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. Moses demonstrated what God wanted, to listen to what God was saying and understand. This, for me, hit me personally, so that's why I included it in this particular speech. It went on to go on with this particular train of thought with the Exodus. I went on to Exodus 4:13, 15, wherein it says, "Oh Lord, please send someone else to do it." This is definitely for me. Then the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and he said, "What about your brother Aaron the Levite? I know he can speak well. He is already on his way to meet you. You shall speak to him and put words in his mouth. I will help both of you speak and will teach you what to do." This really hit me also. Relying on the Lord's help in this particular instance with public speaking assignment and otherwise. I know it seems a little redundant, these scriptures, but they all fit the pattern of Bible speaking about public speaking. I wish I had a little more direct instruction from the Lord, like Moses did, but it didn't work. I didn't want to pray it, but it just didn't work. That's okay. I got enough faith in the Lord, no doubt. So, I don't want to keep belaboring the point, but the Bible, if I may, goes on and on to talk about so much about public speaking. I just couldn't believe it. Like I started to say, I found several websites. I won't bore you with them. I mean, I even found one that really hit me: Fear of Public Speaking Prayer. And I really love that one. There's so much. Like I said, I was just researching for a topic, and it just came to mind. So I don't want to keep going on. So what I'll do is I'll conclude this presentation, if I may, and I will give a few more biblical scriptures to consider, if you don't mind. One is 1 Peter 4:14, also NIV, New International Version. Each one should use whatever gift he has received to serve others. And if I faithfully administering God's grace in its various forms, and if anyone speaks, he should do it as if one is speaking the very words of God. And interesting enough, a biblical verse to end this presentation is noted in 1 Corinthians 13:1, NIV. For myself, all of the scriptures quoted herein are guidance for public speaking and how we may learn and do our best in public speaking. That's about it. If anybody wants to know, I refer to the Holy Bible, New Revised Version Standard, and the Life Study Bible. That's by Tyndale House, and the first one I said was by Zondervan. And then again, all the other different websites I did. And that's about it.
Yay!